Japan's Navy chief doubted it could win a long war. Then Tokyo attacked Pearl Harbor anyway. Why? Japan's Navy chief warned that its fuel might sustain the fleet for only about 18 months, and doubted Japan could win a sweeping victory in that time. Yet on November 5, 1941, Tokyo approved a path that could bring America into the war immediately. Why? Japan was not choosing between victory and defeat. It was choosing which kind of loss it was willing to accept. Freeze the clock here. The whole note has not been delivered. The final decision for war has not been made. No one knows what an attack will hit, or how America will respond. Japan's leaders are not planning to conquer the continental United States. Their theory is narrower: strike the Pacific Fleet, seize the resource-rich South, build a defensive perimeter, and use the shock to negotiate a limited peace. Pearl Harbor is supposed to buy time. The unanswered question is whether military shock can buy consent. Start with oil. Japan produced only a small fraction of what its economy and armed forces consumed. It imported the rest. An official U.S. Army history later estimated 43 million barrels in reserve in 1941, at most 2 years under favorable conditions. Naval leaders used a harsher planning horizon for fleet operations, roughly a year and a half. These were not identical clocks. Civilian rationing, sortie rates, tanker capacity, and access to new fields changed every estimate. After Japanese forces moved into southern French Indochina, the United States froze Japanese assets. Britain and the Netherlands followed with related restrictions. The result was a de facto oil embargo. Waiting now made Japan weaker. But war would burn fuel faster, and capturing an oil field was not the same as delivering refined fuel to a fleet. Wells, ports, refineries, tankers, and protected sea lanes all had to work. The oil crisis created urgency. It did not create an easy military solution. And this crisis was not simply imposed on an innocent state. Japan had been waging a brutal war in China and had expanded into Indochina. Those choices helped produce the sanctions. Explaining Tokyo's constraints does not erase Japanese agency or the people already living under its war. The embargo left no choice is bad history. The real question is why Japan's governing system made some choices feel unthinkable and made an enormous gamble feel preferable. In October, Prime Minister Koichino and Foreign Minister Toyo Da argued that compromise might still preserve negotiations. War Minister Hideki Tojo resisted concessions centered on withdrawing from China. Tojo was not deciding whether war was dangerous. Everyone could see the danger. He was deciding what Japan could surrender without destroying the position, prestige, and political meaning built through years of war. When Koichino's cabinet fell, Tojo became prime minister. The veto now sat at the center of government. The services were not one war party. The Navy needed oil and feared delay. Yet its chief admiral Nagano reportedly doubted that Japan could win a sweeping victory within the fleet's fuel horizon. Admiral Yamamoto's position was different again. He did not offer a plan to conquer America. He argued that if the government chose war in the South, the Pacific Fleet had to be struck at the opening. Opposition to a long war and support for the Pearl Harbor operation could exist in the same mind. One was a political judgment, the other was conditional military logic. Now choose before the AI does. Route A, strike Pearl Harbor and the Philippines while attacking South. Route B, move first against British and Dutch positions, but postpone attacks on American territory and try to keep the United States out. Route C, offer withdrawals credible enough to restore trade, even if that means accepting major losses in China and Indochina. A is the most decisive. B looks like the middle path. C is the least violent abroad, but the most dangerous inside the governing coalition. Which loss do you accept? Make the strongest case for A. The resource objective lies south, but two American positions threaten the operation. The Philippines sits beside the routes that must carry troops outward and oil home. The Pacific Fleet can move across the ocean behind it. A surprise strike at Pearl Harbor, combined with attacks on the Philippines, could suppress both threats at once. That gives the Southern forces time to take Mulea and the Netherlands Indies, repair the oil system, and build a perimeter before American power fully arrives. As an opening campaign, this is coherent. It connects targets to the resource objective. It uses surprise to compensate for weakness. And if war is unavoidable, a partial opening may be worse. Japan could provoke America while leaving the fleet free to interfere. But now follow the arrows. Strike, seize, fortify, then negotiate. The first three are military actions. The fourth belongs to the opponent. Nothing in the operation can force the United States to accept that the war is limited. America does not have to retake the entire perimeter tomorrow. It can refuse terms, mobilize, attack shipping, choose exposed positions, and make Japan spend oil defending a vast frontier. The more successful the opening shock, the more it may unify the attacked country. Route A therefore contains a hidden bet that destroying American capability will also reduce American willingness. Those are not the same variable. If the United States says no, Japan has no cheap second move. The opening is reversible until launch. After launch, the political exit almost disappears. Route B is not modern fantasy. Japanese planners considered moving first against Mulea while bypassing or delaying an attack on the Philippines. Army planners liked the possibility of gaining the South while postponing American entry. Remove Pearl Harbor, and the United States does not receive the same immediate blow. Negotiations might continue. Every week of neutrality could help Japan seize and organize the resource zone. This route attacks the political weakness in A. It tries not to give America one unforgettable reason to unify. But geography does not become neutral. American aircraft, submarines, and naval forces in the Philippines remain beside Japan's communications. They are being reinforced. If they move, Japan must attack them later from a more dispersed position, or accept a vulnerable corridor. Worse, Route B gives Washington control of the calendar. The United States may enter after Japanese forces are committed in Mulea and the Indies. B avoids the first-day shock of A, but it cannot guarantee neutrality. It exchanges one large gamble for an exposed flank and an opponent who chooses when the gamble ends. Route C begins with a fact often lost in the fatalism. Withdrawal was discussed. Proposal A offered phased withdrawals while preserving long-term positions in specified areas. Proposal B offered immediate withdrawal from southern Indochina, conditional later withdrawal from the north, and asked for restored trade in oil. These proposals were not enough to resolve the dispute, but they proved that movement was possible. A stronger package could offer a verified timetable, freeze further expansion, and tie each withdrawal step to staged economic relief. C has the strongest national survival logic. It stops consuming fuel in a new multi-power war and tests whether access can be restored. It is also the hardest route for the government to execute. The Army may treat withdrawal as betrayal. The cabinet may fall. Promises may not be credible unless command relationships change. This gives us two different rankings. The route best for the state can be worst for the coalition that controls the state. Political danger does not make the route imaginary. It reveals whose survival the decision system is actually optimizing. Now apply one hostile assumption to every route. After any attack, the United States refuses a quick settlement. It collapses into the long war its designers fear. B may postpone direct conflict, but attacking British and Dutch possessions still does not create a stable peace, and the Philippines remains a threat. C still faces a hard negotiation and an internal veto, but it has not made the central failure irreversible. It can reveal whether staged withdrawal buys staged relief before the country spends the fleet that gives it leverage. Each route depends on someone. A depends on America choosing negotiation after shock. B depends on America delaying entry while Japan changes the balance in Southeast Asia. C depends on Japanese leaders enforcing painful concessions inside their own system. None is safe. But only one dependency is primarily under Tokyo's control. That is the decisive distinction. Strategy is not just the sequence you want to execute. It is the sequence that survives when the other actor refuses the role you assign to them. For national survival, the AI chooses C, credible strategic retrenchment. Not because peace is guaranteed, but because withdrawal and coalition reform are actions Japan can control more directly than American political will. If the army makes C impossible and the government declares the continental position non-negotiable, then A is more operationally coherent than B. Strike the threats together rather than leave the resource corridor exposed. But that is the best military opening after the political system has removed the safest national option. It is not proof that the war itself is sound. So why attack Pearl Harbor if Japan could not win a long war? Because its leaders first rejected the concessions needed to avoid that war. They then treated a southern offensive as essential before oil and reinforcement closed the window. Pearl Harbor was designed to make the resulting war short, disable the fleet, seize the South, fortify, negotiate. The raid addressed an American capability. It could not determine American intent. Japan chose an operational solution to a political problem, and bet the nation that the opponent would accept the difference. Now let history back into the room. Hull's reply was handed to Japan's ambassadors in Washington on November 26. On December 1st, a new imperial conference formally decided on war. This chronology matters. November 5th was neither a casual discussion nor the final irreversible order. It was the moment policy and operations began locking together under a deadline. The system still had an exit, but every preparation increased the political cost of using it. This is the reaction dependency trap. A plan is fragile when success requires another actor to respond in one narrow, favorable way. The danger grows when your opening move is irreversible. A price cut can force a competitor to lose margin. It cannot force them to leave the market. A threat can damage a rival's position. It cannot force them to feel intimidated rather than enraged. Pearl Harbor could change what America had available on one morning. It could not choose what America wanted the next morning. Now make the choice again. A. Strike everything. B. Go south and delay America. C. Retreat enough to test a settlement. Put A, B, or C in the comments and name the single piece of information that would change your answer. History made the choice. We rerun the decision.